laughed at the idea of stories about Christmas legends or freaky Christmas tales. Christmas to me was about warmth, lights, music, people, food. Safe. Happy. But then the events of 2 years ago are still disturbing my nighttime sleeps. I just can't let go. And with the coming of December, my nightmare takes its first breath. It was Christmas Eve, and I was making my way back home to my parents' house in Wisconsin after a week-long visit in Chicago. The snowstorms were coming in, and it was late, much too late for me to be driving home. The hour was etched into my memory, 9:37 p.m. The roads were bone still. Not another set of headlights in sight. The snow was falling thick and heavy, and the gusts of wind were pushing against my car like phantom fists. About halfway through, I noticed a man standing on the shoulder of the road. At first, I thought I imagined seeing him, just because who would be out in the middle of nowhere during a storm dressed the way he was in that thin hoodie and pair of jeans? He was pale, motionless, and staring straight at my car. I slowed down without understanding why, with aching heart twisting tight in my chest. His face passed before me with a hollow look, as if he were not alive but a mime acting the part. He spoke, but the wordlessness struck me deaf. He then raised a hand to point down the road. Just a point, not a wave. Something in my body froze. I couldn't breathe. I pressed the gas hard and went past him. Finally, when I dared to take a peek in the rearview mirror, he was gone. Gone. What I reminded myself is the problem anyway. Holiday stress, weather trickery, patterns created by falling snow. Yet the memory of his, I was stubbornly resistant to displacement. They weren't empty. They'd been angry. Around 20 minutes later, my cell phone beeped in the cup holder. I looked down and noticed a text alert from my mom. However, when I opened the message, it wasn't from my mother's number. It wasn't even text. It was an image. My car, on the snow-covered road. Light from the headlights, illuminating the snowstorm. Shot from behind. I slammed on the brakes. The car skidded a couple of feet before coming to a stop. My heart was thudding against my shirt. I twisted around in my seat, looking into the blackness behind me, waiting for some face to appear there. Nothing. No other car headlights. No houses. No lights of any kind. Only the black and empty highway. The doors were locked, and I began to drive again. Faster this time. The snow was coming down harder, as if the sky was trying to bury the world. That was all I could hear. The sound of the engine and the sound of my heart pounding in my chest. Next, the radio began to come on by itself. Static was the first sound that filled the speakers. Then followed breathing. Slow and sharp breathing. I turned the volume down, but it grew louder. Thick and crunchy noises as if someone was right behind me. I extended my hand to turn it off, but before I could press the button, the voice came through the speakers. "I see you." I turned deathly cold. I had the feeling I was shrinking inside my own flesh. I pulled the car over again, shaking, so hard the steering wheel vibrated. I had no idea what to do. I had no cell reception. No cars. No signs. Only me. Come on, shit. I remained there for maybe 30 seconds before forcing myself to make a move. I turned off the radio, gripped the steering wheel, and headed back out onto the roads. The storm only intensified. I could hardly make out what lay ahead of me. I found myself praying silently, praying despite the idiocy of it all. I was expecting to see a pretty empty road. The headlights lit up a figure standing in the middle of the footprints, right in the middle of the road. Deep and fresh footprints in the snow. Going forward. Going in the direction I was going. And I could swear on my life that they were barefooted. I wanted to turn around. I really did. But the storm was blinding and the highway was small. The tires could have slipped. I kept going. I noticed a car parked on the side of the road 5 minutes later. The headlights were off. The windows were frosted. The driver's door was wide open. I naturally slowed down. Too much curiosity. Too much fear. The closer I got, the more I could see motion. A male figure emerging from behind the car that was abandoned and now standing in the center of the road. The same man. The same clothes. The same dead stare. I jammed on the brakes once more. My car halted inches from his. But he didn't react. didn't even blink. His eyes were glued to mine through the windshield, repeating the same thing he'd said before. "I see you." And then he smiled. I let out a shriek despite my best intentions not to. It was primal, it was fractured. I shifted the car into reverse with screeching tires and backed away quickly. But the snow muffled all sound, all sense of orientation in my body. The rear of my wheels slid, and before I could correct it, the car spun sideways and slammed into a snowbank. The engine stopped. The lights flickered off. The world went silent. Over and over I tried the ignition with stiff and shaking fingers. But nothing would start. Now through the windshield, he was walking towards me. Slow, smooth, his head cocked just slightly like he was wondering how I would take it. Grab my mobile. There is no reception. I reach for the door handle. It's frozen shut. He made his way to the front of the car and put one hand on the hood. His skin was gray in the storm. Frostbitten. Wrong. Then he leaned down until his face was inches away from the glass, staring right into my eyes. He whispered something I'll never forget. "Get out." The world seemed like it had stopped breathing. My heart was going to explode. I closed my eyes and pushed myself hard against the seat, waiting for the glass to shatter. The seconds became minutes. Minutes turned into hours. Time lost all meaning. When I finally opened my eyes, he was gone. I managed to get the car started. I don't even remember how. I just remember pulling up to my parents' house, so shaken that I could barely hold a glass of water. Later that night, just past midnight, I received a notification. A photograph had been sent, this time from my mom's number. It was me, asleep in the guest bed, taken from the doorway. To this day, no one will believe me. But I know what I saw. I know it followed me. And Christmas hasn't felt safe since. I never put stock in Christmas scary stories. My family enjoyed Christmas. Each year we'd pack up our car and drive to my Aunt Rebecca's cabin in Bellingham, Washington to spend Christmas Eve with them. Snow lights, laughter, scents of cinnamon rolls, and all that stuff. There was nothing bizarre about this location. Until last year. It was the 24th of December, just after 9 p.m. All were in bed with the exception of me. I was sitting in the window seat at the end of the living room, halfway, asleep halfway, scrolling through my iPhone, watching the flakes hit the porch light. The house was dark, quiet, with that homey warmth inside the room. But then I saw something move outside in the driveway. Initially, I thought that was simply snow shifting. But then something emerged into the light. A figure, tall, statue-like, unmoving, facing the house. My heart stopped. Perhaps one of the neighbors? But the cabin was way back in the woods. The closest house was almost a mile down the road. I leaned in close to the window and tried to see better. Whoever it was, it looked like they were wearing something dark. A coat maybe, or a hood. I gaped for so long that I forgot to breathe. And then, with no warning, the apparition took a step forward. Something inside of me contracted, as if my body knew something that my mind did not want to believe. They were moving closer. I backed away from the window and turned off the lamp. The Christmas tree was still aglow with soft-colored lights. The room grew darker around me, and my image disappeared in the window. Outside, that thing was still moving slowly. Every step cracked through the snow. My heart was pounding in my ears. I could wake someone up, but the sound of the footsteps made me hold back. I did not want to make any noise. I did not want to be seen. The footsteps reached the porch. I listened to the movement of weight on the boards, and the silence that followed was long. I could feel the trembling in my hands. Knock. Exactly one. I almost let out a yell. I waited. Then came another knock. Harder. I am frozen between the tree and the fireplace, staring at the door. The knocks do not stop. They grow louder. Faster. Each blow shook the wood, vibrating all the way through the cabin. And then the handle of the door started to move. And that was... I grabbed a hold of the poker from the fireplace, holding it so tightly it ached in my fingers. The clattering ceased. The silence slowly returned. The minutes ticked by, or maybe seconds. Then there was this sliding noise across the floor. Whispering scrape just below the door. I moved stealthily and picked it up. The bow was small and red and underneath Christmas. Cheap plastic and ripped. My stomach twisted up tight. I checked the window again. Not a thing. No footprints away from the house. No shadow in the driveway. As if the intruder had disappeared or had never existed at all. I hardly slept. Each time I shut my eyes, the knocking sounded in my head again. However, that was only the beginning. What happened the next night proved that this wasn't just some hiker lost in the woods. Whoever was out in the woods knew me. They weren't random. They weren't finished yet either. They were waiting, and then they returned. It was also cold on Christmas night. Snow had drifted to the edge of the porch by the time evening came. We had laughed while unwrapping presents in the morning, laughed while watching old movies in an attempt to pretend I had not seen what I'd seen. I never said anything. I didn't want to ruin Christmas. However, beneath all of this, the fear was still laced. It was midnight, and I got up to get a glass of drinking water. It was pitch dark in the house, except for the light emanating from the Christmas tree. I entered the living room, but I stopped in my tracks. The front door was unlocked. My heart pounded directly through my jaw. Of course I had locked it. I was certain, completely sure. I swallowed hard and froze. I was listening. Nothing. I relocked the door and stepped back. As soon as I turned, I noticed that there was something sitting under the tree that hadn't been there before. A new gift box, small and square, and wrapped in plain white paper with no name. My entire being cried out not to touch it, but my curiosity got the better of me. I lowered myself down to the floor and unwrapped the paper. In the box, there was one Polaroid photograph. It was me, sleeping. My stomach turned over so quickly, I knew I was going to be sick. This picture was not taken earlier in the evening or yesterday. From the blanket and the shirt I am wearing, it had to be taken in the last 3 hours. There had been someone in the cabin. I struggled to awaken the others. Hysteria broke out quickly. My aunt called the police, while another cousin, Mark, took up the fireplace poker to search the rooms. We all gathered in one spot, shaking, whispering, fearful of every dark corner. They arrived within 30 minutes, but the snow was only making things worse. It was falling so heavily they couldn't see any footprints. They searched the house, but they found nothing. There was no sign of break-in, no broken window, no fingerprints. It's probably a prank, they said. Perhaps it's a family member. Perhaps it's someone from your neighborhood. Perhaps you're seeing this incorrectly. I knew better. When morning arrived, the police left, and we began to pack up to leave. No one felt safe at this point. As he was loading the car, Mark called out. His voice caught in mid-sentence. I hurried over. There in the snow, half hidden beside the porch, was something red. I pushed the snow aside. Another bough, just like the first one. I catch sight of the footprints. 2 of them, bare feet, human, headed toward the trees. No shoes. Socks, no. Simply skin pressed into the snow. The police returned, and of course they found nothing again. The prints soon disappeared, and no one was very eager to follow them. The ride home was in complete silence. That night I didn't sleep. I lay awake until the sun rose, my heart pounding, all sounds more acute than they should have been. About 5 in the morning, my mobile phone beeped. It contained 2 messages from an unknown number. The first one was just a photograph of myself sitting in the front seat of our car when we departed from the cabin. The second message was, "You forgot your gift." I blocked the number. I moved apartments. Up a new lockup. Every Christmas Eve, without fail, a small package will be left outside the door, wrapped in plain white paper, with a torn red ribbon tied around it. I've never opened another one. I don't want to know how many more pictures they have. Indeed, or how close they've gotten since. This occurred. This continues even today.